Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for Mind the Gap, a quick guide to overcoming your school's learning loss. My name is Dawn, and I'm going to be taking you through the webinar tonight. And with me, I have my colleague Heather, who is our behind-the-scenes tech guru. So in case you have any tech issues whatsoever, please feel free to reach out to her in the question part of your webinar portal. Hey, Heather, how you doing tonight?
Hi, Dawn. I'm great, thanks.
Awesome. Well, I also want to share with you this resource document. I believe Heather put this in the chat box, right, Heather?
I did.
Okay, excellent. So all of the strategies and the resources I'm sharing tonight are found in that hyperdoc in the chat box. And anytime you see that little blue square there that says handout hyperdoc, that just means that that resource is in that as well as we go through. Today's webinar is brought to you by Blue Apple Projects. These are projects that engage students, teach the content teachers need to teach, all while making the world a better place. Each project includes everything that a teacher needs to make project-based learning come alive in their classroom, from project plans, supplies, real-world connections, cross-curricular content, and collaboration options. Check them out at blueappleteacher.org. So for today's agenda, we're going to be focusing in 3 areas. First, I'm going to share with you 5 tips to help you plan for learning loss starting this school year. Then we're going to switch over to prioritizing those social and emotional needs for your staff, your students, and you. And finally, I'm going to share with you 3 ways to set your teachers up for success when dealing with learning loss. But before we dive into all of that, I'm curious to find out who is with us tonight. Heather's going to start a poll here, and if you could, select that grade level of students you serve. And just to let you know, all of the strategies and resources and ideas I'm going to share work for all grade levels. Give you a few seconds to finish that up, and then Heather, you want to share those results?
Yeah, so it looks like we have 40% K-5, we have 60% middle school 6 through 8, and then 0% high school and 0% K-12.
Okay. All right, so we have a good representation of K-8 administrators here. So thank you again for joining us. And I want to follow up that question with another one. Since this webinar is on learning loss, I'm curious, approximately what percentage of your planning for next year will be devoted to learning loss? So Heather's going to open that up. If you could approximate that number for me. Give you a few seconds to do that. And Heather, when you see those coming in, go ahead and share those results.
Okay, we have 29% is 0 to 20%, 57% is 21 to 40%, 14% is 41 to 60%, and then 0% is 61 through 100%.
Okay. All right, so we're in the 0 to 60% range, with the majority there in the 20 to 40%. Okay, great, thank you. So I did want to lay it out on the table. These 2 words, when you put them separately, they're fine. You put them together, and they may be construed as a bad word, learning loss. Well, we're using the term learning loss because we're going from the source here, and that's from the American Rescue Plan, which is where the ESSER funds are from. And as you see there in that quote, you're reserving at least 20% of funds to address learning loss. So that is the terminology that they use, and that is what we are going to use during this webinar. And they identify to addressing learning loss by implementing evidence-based interventions to meet the social, emotional, and academic needs of your students, as well as addressing the underrepresented student subgroups in your school. So whether you call it learning loss, unfinished learning, instructional loss, instructional gaps, learning gaps, we know that there are gaps that we need to attend to this school year. And so the big question remains, how can we bridge those gaps? So I want to share with you 5 tips to help you start planning for that learning loss this school year. The first one is to really, it's more of a mindset shift, kind of shifting learning loss for an issue for students, for teachers. It's not just for one set or a group of people, because it will result in blame. And really, it's an outcome of the pandemic. And you are not alone. All districts are dealing with this at some level this next school year. And so think about it more as an opportunity to collaborate with fellow districts or schools and to really reimagine what your school could be like next year and the subsequent years, to reimagine your instruction, the structure of your school. The second tip when planning for learning loss is to focus on quality of core instruction. So remediation, reteaching is really not the complete answer. We don't want to pull our students out and reteach them and allow them to get further and further behind that grade level curriculum. So really focus on high quality, grade level core content and not reteaching. You want to make sure that that content is engaging, that it's high quality work for everybody to account for equity as well. Authentic, meaningful learning is a great way to do that. Project-based learning, where students are learning in a purposeful way through connected content, where that content isn't retaught, but it is revisited, and they see how that content connects to each other, math, science, ELA, social studies, in a purposeful project. And also rethink and refocus those opportunities for acceleration out of school time, such as in your summer programs, which you're probably in the midst of right now, and also your after school programs. The third tip when planning for learning loss is to make sure that you're collecting clear and actionable data. One great way to really assess your assessments is take a look at the different assessments that you're doing at each grade level. And are there overlaps? If there are, then make sure you remove them. Focus more on that process, using that assessment to inform instruction rather than the product, that creation of an additional assessment. And we know that those state tests and those off-the-shelf diagnostic tools or those interim assessments, they can be helpful in creating this baseline and seeing where your students are at, but they're only one piece of data. It's not the complete picture. So you need to go to the source to really understand where your students are at and where those gaps are. And that's why formative assessment is going to be so important next year. So elevate the importance of formative assessment. It's going to help you identify gaps in learning at the classroom level. So prioritize training for your teachers on best formative assessment practices. I've included in our handout, HyperDoc, some strategies for formative assessment that you can share with your teachers, at a staff meeting. To help them thinking about those more meaningful, faster, smaller assessments to really get that data, then to share it with you and really see where those students are at. So you can spend less time on those development of those large scale assessments, but more time on more meaningful ways to assess. And make sure you're asking your teachers. They are on the front lines of assessments. So make sure that you are surveying them, talking to them, to figuring out where are those gaps. And one great way to do that is to give them a survey. And we put together a survey, again, this is in the HyperDoc, for elementary and secondary teachers to really reflect on those gaps that they've observed, they identified this past school year. Then use that in your planning with your grade level teams, your PLCs. Have conversations with the grade levels above and below you to really plan for your curriculum this fall. And lastly, focus on power standards. So use that formative assessment data that you've collected from your teachers, your teacher surveys, their reflections, their observations, and those district assessments or interim assessments, and identify your power standards. One great way to do that is to use a standard scoring sheet as a tool to figure out what your power standards are. So we created for you this standard scoring sheet. It's for K-8, and we took the core content standards, science, social studies, math, and ELA, and we put together a group of spreadsheets where we use these 3 different categories to score all those standards. Building block, so how much future learning builds off this standard. Is it multidisciplinary? So how applicable is this standard across content areas? And what is that level of thinking? Is it more a lower level, recall, or is it more of a higher level to kind of creation? And score them a 1 to 5, and then this spreadsheet will identify which ones will float to the top, basically. And then those become your power standards. Now, those are the 3 categories we selected, and we did take a crack at scoring these. Obviously, this is customizable. This is for you. So you put in those categories that make sense, that align with your goals, and possibly adding in a category regarding learning loss too, to really figure out what is going to be the most important standards to address to teach come this fall. So I shared with you a few tips to help you plan for learning loss. And Heather's gonna post a poll right now. I'm curious, which of these are you going to consider as you plan for learning loss this fall? Are you going to make sure to focus on quality core instruction as opposed to reteaching? Collect clear and actionable data? Elevate formative assessment in the classroom, and use power standards. So select as many as you see will work for you this fall. And Heather, when it looks like they're coming in, you want to share those results?
Yeah. So it looks like 60% want to focus on quality core instruction. 60% collect clear and actionable data. 60% want to elevate formative assessment. And 40% are interested in using power standards.
Okay, fantastic. Excellent. So hopefully you found a tip or an idea that is helpful for you as you're heading into this next school year. All right. So now we're going to talk about prioritizing social and emotional needs. And we know how important social and emotional learning is in our classrooms. And it's always been important, and we know how important it has been this past year and a half with teaching during a pandemic. But just because we're on that tail end or heading out of this pandemic, and hopefully things are going to be back to normal or somewhat normal, hopefully come fall, doesn't mean that this is any less important. It's actually the opposite. So we need to continue prioritizing the social and emotional needs of our students, of our staff, and of you as well. So I really feel that this post says it all. If a child can do advanced math, speak 3 languages, or receive top grades, but can't manage their emotions, practice conflict resolution, or handle stress, none of that other stuff is really going to matter. Absolutely. So you can provide all the supports for bridging the gap of learning loss, that quality core instruction, clear and actionable data, formative assessment, teacher input, power standards. Use your ESSER funding to give that support. But if you don't have that social and emotional learning built in, that work could be for naught. So making sure you're attending to that for your students, but also for your staff. Their social and emotional well-being is incredibly important because an investment in your teachers is an investment in your students. So let's take a look at our teachers. And I'd like you to ask yourself this question. How are they? How are your teachers? And I imagine most of you on the line can acknowledge that this was an incredibly stressful year for your teachers. And probably one of the most stressful years they've had in their teaching career. And in this recent report published by RAND back in February, they identified stress as the top reason teachers leave the teaching profession. That was before and during the pandemic. And if we know that our teachers' stress level was incredibly high this year, we want to make sure that we do something about that, because we want to keep our teachers and we want to attend to their social and emotional needs. So bottom line, we need to take care of our teachers. So I want to share with you just a few tips or reminders. A lot of them are just small ways that make a big difference in that social and emotional well-being of your staff. First is find those opportunities when you can to celebrate and affirm. Shout outs at staff meetings, thank you post-it notes just left in their mailbox. Put them on your calendar so you make sure you hit maybe every teacher once a month or every other month, depending on the size of your staff. Rethink your staff meetings. If it's a housekeeping item, maybe put it in an email or do a video of yourself kind of going over some of those details and saving that staff time for really development work or collaboration time, making it more PD focused. Your teachers are your experts, so make sure you're tapping into them for their input. So survey your staff, like that survey I shared for learning loss, or their ideas on school improvement goals. Check in with them on their mental well-being or how their students are doing in their classes. Try to be there when you can for those professional development opportunities, because it really shows the teachers that you value that training that they're at and you value their time. Try to turn as many conversations you can into coaching conversations. If you're doing a walkthrough of the class or you're just talking to a teacher in a hall, try to open that conversation up to really mediate their thinking, to get them reflecting on their practice. What made you feel that way, or how could you use this the next time you teach their lesson? Things like that, really allowing them to reflect on their practice. And this I stole from a principal. His name's Jerry Brooks. There he is right there. He calls these object lessons, and he physically gives his teachers at the beginning of each school year a light switch. And that's just a reminder for them to turn their educational brain off at some point in the evening, on the weekends, whenever it happens to be. But it's more of him just reminding them that they need to take that time for themselves and give themselves permission to do that. The last tip I want to share with you is just equip your teachers. Provide them with the training and the resources that support their well-being. And so we put together a whole bunch of some strategies and reminders to do just that, to help your teachers to decrease their stress, increase their productivity, and avoid burnout. And this is great advice to share with your teachers, possibly at the beginning of the year. So maybe start off your staff meetings this year with a discussion on this and sharing some of these ideas. But also remember to take this advice yourself as well, to take care of you. So Heather's going to put up another poll here. So which of the following will you do to meet your staff's social and emotional needs? Check as many as you want. Which of them will you do or continue to do to meet your staff's needs? Celebrate and affirm, rethink your staff meetings, be there for those PDs, turn conversations into coaching conversations, or equip your teachers with strategies to help them with their social and emotional well-being. Okay, Heather, what do we have?
80% want to celebrate and affirm, 80% want to rethink meetings, 80% want to be there, 80% chose you are the coach, and 40% chose equip your teachers.
Okay, fantastic, excellent. And a lot of those are very quick and easy things that you can do just to let your teachers know that you're there for them and that you care. So thank you. So the second question that I want you to ask yourself is, how are your students? How are your students? We know that this past year has been incredibly difficult for our students, and it's going to continue to be as they come back to school. And so I just wanted to share this March report from EdWeek, where they looked at data from the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. They found that ER visits due to mental health crises between April 2020 and October 2020 increased quite significantly for our elementary age students and our secondary students. So this has just been an incredibly difficult time for our students as well. And many experts agree that the effects of pandemic on students are likely to be felt for years to come. So we need to make sure we're equipping our teachers with those skills and those strategies, the resources to bring social emotional learning into the classroom, to make it a very seamless part of classroom instruction. So using a framework such as the Castle Core Competency Framework is a great way to do that. And this is great because it works at all grade levels, pre-K to high school. And you can see those 5 core competencies there in the center. Now we've created a resource that addresses each one of those core competencies and quick strategies that teachers could use to implement SEL into the classroom. So it's not just, this is SEL time. It's just a part of how the teachers build that classroom community and environment. So for example, self-awareness, have your students participate in reflecting through journals, responding to different prompts. For self-management, support them by setting SMART goals. For responsible decision-making, have them reflect on their decisions. For relationship skills, make sure you're establishing those positive classroom connection rituals like affirming, shout outs, those types of things. And for social awareness, have them engage in projects that matter, like project-based learning. So these are just a few of the ideas. There are many more here in this strategy sheet, again, in that hyperdoc there, that you can share with your teachers. Another great opportunity to bring these at staff meetings and have teachers look at them and discuss and how they can implement these strategies in the classroom. And then the last question I want you to ask yourself is, how is your school? Or I guess, where is your school on this roadmap? This is the SEL roadmap from Castle, and in it they've identified the major milestones on the road to SEL implementation for a school. So this is a great resource to take a look and really assess where you're at, where you want to be, and what steps you need to take to get there. And this is, again, this is referenced in that hyperdoc as well. Okay, so we looked at some ways to help you plan for learning loss. We took a look at some resources, ideas for addressing the social and emotional needs of your students, your staff, your school. And now let's end the webinar with 3 ways to set your teachers up for success this year, preparing your teachers for learning loss. And so we first start off with professional development. The key is making sure that it's flexible and customized. The teachers have choice in the professional learning. It honors their profession. It's building that capacity. But you don't want to stop there, because it's one thing to be really excited and hear it in a training and ready to go, and then reality hits and you get into the classroom and you just don't have time to create the resources that are needed to make sure this is fully implemented. And that's why providing your teachers with those instructional resources is so important, because that ensures that implementation of that professional learning, and it saves your teachers time. Then lastly, making sure that your teachers know that they have someone they can go to for ongoing support throughout the school year. This is really going to maximize your PD investment, and it's going to ensure accountability and support that efficacy, that confidence in a teacher for continuing this type of work for years to come. So let's take a look at flexible and customized PD. The first step that you really need to do is figuring out what are those key content areas that you want to focus in on this school year to tackle learning loss. Now, if you're not sure what they are right now, we put together a tool to help you identify those, and that's our needs analysis survey. It's a quick 5-minute survey. You can see that bit.ly there on the screen. Again, it's also in that hyperdoc, so you can take a look at it later as well. But once you've done that survey, we will create for you a free customized needs analysis report. So even if you use us for PD or not, we want to make sure you have that tool to have a successful fall. And if you want to take this up a step further, or ask your teachers. So we put together a survey that you can send to your teachers, or we can send that to them, and we can look at all of that data and put that report together for you, so you can see what is really most important to your teachers when it comes to those key content areas for learning loss. Now, we've identified key content areas for learning loss, and I want to share those with you. So for our more immersive workshops, We have equity, inquiry-based instruction. We have social emotional learning, project-based learning. And then you can see all these different learning sessions as well. So the idea is you want to provide that kind of customizable and flexible PD so that teachers aren't sitting in 3 days of workshops where they'll maybe start off with an immersive workshop on inquiry-based ELA. And then the next is a learning session. So next month they engage in a 1-hour session on differentiation. And then the next month it's student choice and voice. And so just kind of keeping that learning alive throughout the year and helps build that efficacy as well. Another area that you want to make sure that you consider when your teachers are involved in professional development is that you have a metric to measure success. Just like we have metrics for measuring success of our students, those formative assessments, we want that for our professional learning. And so one thing that we do with all of our professional development is we have agreed upon learning objectives so that we survey our teachers, their before score and then their after the training score to really show that growth. And then there's your evidence base as well. And the second area when you're setting your teachers up for success is making sure you're providing them with those instructional resources. Again, that training is so important to build that capacity, that foundation. But in order to really make sure it gets implemented, you want to make sure that you provide them with those resources to save them time. So here's some examples of those key content areas. There's social emotional learning, and I shared this earlier. So again, all of this is in that hyperdoc that you can share with your staff. But here are some resources you can share with your teachers to make sure that they are implementing the social and emotional lessons or ideas into their daily instruction. Project-based learning, it's an incredible way to bridge learning loss by connecting content and providing that high quality grade level work. And through our Blue Apple projects, we provide our teachers with those supports, the project plan supplies, the real world connections, the content connections, collaboration options, so they can do what they do best, teach, and we've done all the heavy lifting for them as well, saving them time. Inquiry-based learning, a great way for students to construct meaning and not the sit and get. They're thinking and acting like scientists. And so we have inquiry-based science lessons, inquiry-based science model, and also strategies, again, in that hyperdoc you can share with your staff. And then finally, differentiated learning. We know that's going to be obviously an incredibly important topic as well this coming year. So here are a few strategies that we have that you can share. We have webinars, we have differentiation strategies, and also a resource on alternative assessments, a great way to differentiate learning. And then finally, that ongoing support piece, so important. One thing that we do with our teachers is we make sure that they have this coaching document they complete during our professional development. So we get that ball rolling, we keep that conversation going. The action plan, because when teachers are able to process, synthesize, and write down exactly what it is they want to implement in their classroom, you know that it's going to happen. And then also one thing that is also really exciting for us is that we have student field trips. So we can come to a school, or either virtually or in person, depending on where you are, and we can come in and teach an inquiry-based science lesson, something that they probably have not had exposure to. And the teacher there can observe to see best practices and use that as part of their professional development as well. And so we have an example learning loss plan. If you're interested in seeing more of that, again, this is in the handy hyperdoc. It is on our website, Learning Loss Recovery Plan there. Again, that's all in the handy hyperdoc. And I just want to invite you to our free Better Together networking event, where we are going to talk more about learning loss, but what's really, really awesome about this is you're going to be able to network with peers, with colleagues, with other administrators, and ways to combat learning loss. So hopefully you're able to join us next month, July 21st. And I'm really excited about this. This is our Lunch and Learn giveaway. So I'd love for you right now, I believe Heather put the bit.ly in the chat right now. Right, Heather?
Yes, I did.
Okay, perfect. So this bit.ly is in there, and we are going to draw 5 names out of this form, and you are going to win a lunch and learn. This is an opportunity for your staff to get, or up to 20 teachers to get free lunch, but also to receive a 45-minute virtual learning session on a topic of your choice. So we'd love to come to your school virtually, provide you with some good lunch, and please sign up for that. We'd love to get to your school. So that's in the chat, so I'm gonna move on there. And we've got one last poll, because I know it is about time. So Heather is gonna put up a poll here. So I mentioned a few free tools to help you with your planning for learning loss. So which of these do you think would be valuable? Check all that apply. That needs analysis survey for administrators that I shared, just to find those key content areas for PD. The needs analysis survey for teachers, something that you would or we could send to your teachers to find out what it is they're most interested in for their professional growth. That Better Together networking event next month, or the opportunity to win free lunch and learns. Which of these tools do you think would be valuable? And Heather, what do we got?
We have 75% are interested in the needs analysis survey for admins, 75% in the needs analysis survey for teachers, 50% in the Better Together admin networking event, and 100% in the lunch and learn.
All right, well, I hope everyone signs up then. 100% of you are check that. So yes, I hope we get all of your names in there so we can do that drawing. Excellent. And I just wanted to thank you. Thank you so much for everything you do every day. And because you are a part of this webinar, whether you're live or you're watching the recording a little bit later, if you book any of our PD, Blue Apple projects, or our science field trips by August 1st, you will get 20% off. And then that can start with completing that free needs analysis as well. And you can see that bit.ly there. So thank you again. Have a wonderful evening and a fantastic summer. Thanks, everyone.